Hi, Rob Davis here, working on a spiderweb lead back from the Chrome shop. This was built by Keith Moone, and when it came back from the shop and I started lining everything back up, I came upon sort of an unfortunate situation. There's a really strong, slightly sharp C in the skirt. This would be the note, and we have this really strong tone in the skirt, and it's kind of fighting with this C. So how do we combat that? Number one, I might end up putting some dampening strips on the bottom of the skirt to just dampen it a little bit. The other thing we can do is, if it's a note where the characteristic sound of that instrument is supposed to be real bright, you can line up all the overtones you possibly can on that note and make sure it has a good form and everything. A spiderweb lead certainly should be nice and bright. So I'll line up all the overtones I could on this low C. I really went to some lengths to try and make that happen. So let's see what we were able to wind up with. Number one, the fundamental, right there. First overtone, an octave above that. That would be this note, in tune, right there. Not unusual. Next overtone, a fifth above that. It's 3 times the fundamental's frequency. It's this note on the side right here. So we have that. The next overtone would be a perfect fourth above that. It's 2 octaves above the fundamental. It's pretty unusual to get that working on the low C of a spiderweb lead. It would be that note, but we actually have it here. Got a second octave on the low C of a spiderweb lead. In addition to that, I actually lined up 5F. It's a narrow major third above that second octave. It's a flat E. And if you listen carefully, you can hear it. It's right there. It's a slightly flat E above the second octave. In addition to that, an octave above the second overtone was pretty close, and I was able to actually line that up. We've got this pitch here, right there. That's 6F. And that's the end of the overtones I was able to line up on purpose. It just so happens that 7F is kind of off to the side of 6F, sort of, kind of. It's about 20 cents off of what 7F would be, but it's sort of there in spirit. It's probably helping a little bit. It's a little bit of a flat B flat. So we've got F through 6F on purpose, and something that's not that far off from 7F. So what do we get? If I dampen all of these notes so that we can just hear the sound that's coming from this low C, and just for good measure I'll dampen this little C as well. We have a low C that's responsive if I just drop the weight of a mallet on it. It's really sensitive. At the same time, I can take a double second mallet and hit it way too hard and it won't really buckle. It's tight, it can just give out volume. The harder you hit it, the louder it gets. It doesn't really buckle. At the same time, a really hard lead mallet causes it to bloom. That's one thing that can really be a pitfall if you're lining up an unusual amount of overtones, particularly unusually high overtones on a note in a range where that's really hard to do. You can start to sacrifice the form of a note, the proper tension of a note, and the shape and all of that kind of thing, and you can line up the second octave on the low C of a spiderweb lead, but you can have a note that's really terrible because maybe you're very loose, for example. But not this one. If I just put a couple of fingers on the skirt to dampen it just a little bit, we have a really pleasant sounding low C. It's got plenty of body, even though it has lots of overtones in tune, because it has a nice high shape It's got a proper form across the back of it. It's got proper tension and relaxation in different parts of the note. It's very clean. There's no interference happening between this octave and this fundamental, or side to side with any of the other elements on the drum or anything like that. In fact, this lead is so well built that I was able to line up second octaves on all of the rim notes. Not only the low C, but the C sharp, the D, the E flat, and so on, up through the whole range, extending into the middle of the drum, the C sharp, the D, all the way up to about G. So it's certainly there on the F and the F sharp, and with the G, I think it's there. I can kind of feel that it's there. The A flat, it's debatable. Is it really there? It's kind of hard to tell. But if I take all the dampening off, you can hear the effects of those second octaves that are present throughout so much of the range. The F really has an amazing pop. The G has got that pop as well. The A flat, it's pretty nice, but does it really have that second octave pop? Is the second octave really there? Really independently? Hard to say. We've got a nice second octave on the low C without having sacrificed anything about the form or the shape. It's as independent as it can be with such an unfortunate skirt tone. So we'll just have to see. Do I want to dampen the skirt a little bit? We'll see. If I don't dampen it, it helps the drum to be as wide open as possible. So it's kind of an artistic decision. So we'll just have to see. But there it is. It can be done. It's possible. It's rare. You can put a second octave on the low C on a really supremely well-built drum, and it is possible to get that to work out without sacrificing the other things you need for a great sounding note.